I'm Saamdu Chetri, coming from Bhutan, a small country wedged between China and India and the Eastern Himalayas. I work at the GNH Center as the director of the center.
Okay. And can you tell us about the whole process that you're working with?
The center specifically looks into how to practice GNH in living in day-to-day life. In fact, there are 4 institutions in the government, in the country, that looks into different aspects of GNH. But GNH translated is gross national happiness, and we don't talk about happiness, the fleeting momentary happiness. We're talking about happiness in 3 divides. That's the social, ecological and economic divides. How can we bridge these divides with this philosophy of happiness?
And why do you think it was successful, or is becoming successful in Bhutan?
I think the model, GDP model, the conventional economic model, is failed. It has failed in many terms. It is not equitable at all. If you look into, ecological destruction, it translates into economic development, but the ecology is totally destroyed. So there are many examples to go by, looking into the global warming as other aspect. So GDP is a failed model, and the world is looking for an alternative paradigm, shift paradigm in development. So therefore, we feel that we are not proven as yet that GNH can be a replacement for GDP, while I believe that GDP will always remain a part of GNH, or gross national happiness, in that the GDP's negativity will be subtracted, and so that it becomes a complete new development paradigm, either under the name of gross national happiness or under genuine progress index, or others as the world wants to take it.
So it's an integrated solution?
We feel this is an integrated solution. We have worked over 3 surveys now, and all the surveys prove that it works.
Okay. From a practical point of view, here in Southern Africa, for a person that's interested in, a person that's an innovator or an entrepreneur, but they're interested in the work that they do being meaningful and sustainable, how would you apply the principles of GNH to that? Well,
all the business that we must look at must serve a purpose, and that purpose is the development of human beings. So therefore, we have to look into those kind of entrepreneurs who are environment friendly, who take risk in doing something different, helping equitable distribution of wealth, helping in serving the nature, helping in serving the society, bringing everything together as human beings, not really retarding, but making a holistic development of the human mind and the kind. And to do that, I think we have to walk through the path of being very selective, not taking your jump into ecologically destructive kind of enterprises, which are, they must be sustainable, they must be principally equitable, they must be societally very profoundly mergeable. I think I would advise for all the future enterprises to look into different parameters of helping the earth rejuvenate itself, and for those who are already existing to see where they can mitigate those problems so that they can help the environment, economy and the society to grow hand in hand.
Okay. Maybe it's a silly question, but how do you calibrate happiness? What constitutes happiness for you?
Happiness is a very fleeting term. It is very individual. When you look into happiness as a term, you can be happy a moment, you can be happy with one thing. That same thing cannot make the other person happy. But we're talking about happiness at a much deeper level, and that we're saying you cannot be happy while others are unhappy. So we are talking about creating happiness in the society, in the community that you live. We are talking about integrating with the nature. We are talking about developing innate human values so that you can differentiate between what is required, what is need, and what is greed. This is the happiness we refer to in the context of GNH, or gross national happiness, while happiness itself is very individual, and even there it can very well be transformed when you look inwardly yourself and not outwardly, and become a very contemplative, meditative, reflective human being, asking right questions at right point of time. One example I can give is when you go to a store and you see that you want to buy something. I think you have the money to buy, but you have the urge there, but you should ask yourself, do I need this? And you'll get immediate answer. If it is a yes, then you ask the next question, for what? And you have a complete decision in your hand.
Okay. Can you tell us what some of the challenges have been that you've faced in presenting GNH?
People often ask, GNH works in a small population and country like yours in Bhutan, how can we translate into the bigger world? That's first. Second, they say we are culturally totally different now. We have walked away from our own culture. We are now globalized. How can we adapt this? So these are two major questions that face. The other one that is also asked is, how does this translate into economic development? And GNH is not looking only into economic development, we're looking into a very holistic development of human being, the well-being of human being. So we're not talking economic independently from ecology or society, we're talking all three together. And so therefore the answers that often I give is like in the cultural divide, I say every human being has culture. All we need to do is dig deep inside what is humanity. And I'm sure that whether it's a small locality or a big town, or you have your own cultures. Cultures refer to innate human values, values that help each other, that create each other. So therefore I do not see why this measure cannot come in. Provided you are not egoist, which means that I want to be this, I want this, it's for me, rather than if we put it in the other form, for us, we are responsible, it's for us, more taking yourself plurally than yourself, walking out of ego and becoming a human in the real sense.
Are you hopeful?
I'm very hopeful. The kind of youth that I have been meeting, many American students, in fact 3 batches each year I meet back in Bhutan, Singaporean students, the elderly people that have walked around in Europe and in South Africa now that I'm here, the youth, I see a different trend here. I think the time is right for this change of a new development paradigm, because they realize our earth is no more sustainable with the kind of habits that we have taken in form of our life and living. We must learn to respect all forms of life. We must learn to remain in integration with our society, and we must be economically, in terms of looking after yourself, your well-being is very important. I think this realization is very much now in the people of today.
Okay. And you kind of answered this, but if I could just ask you again, if you could just give one bit of advice to a person starting out that's just embarking on a venture, a concept or something, what's a bit of advice in terms of reflecting on the way forward, what would that advice be?
It would be very important, first of all, to understand the world we are living in, to analyze what is the kind of difficulties the world is facing today, and the next step after you have understood, or we have understood rather, is to begin to look inwardly, to ask this question to oneself: what is the purpose of my life and living? The truth is that I am born to die. So what is that I need to live as a full, complete human being with happiness and well-being between this birth and death? What is the kind of footprints that we are going to leave behind when I'm dead and gone? I think these are the questions around where we have to learn to reflect, and that learning can take place through meditative reflections. Meditation is not religious. It is in fact very universal. I had a chance of hosting a global leadership conference in Bhutan with so many cultural and religious leaders. When we sat there, there were Hindus, Buddhists, Christians, Muslims, Sufis, all cultures. And when we sat down there, 10 days to talk about and travel around, we were talking the same language. And that language is the language of humanity. The innate human values must be dug out from inwardly so that you can be a part and parcel of this globe.